Okay, well, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker today. I'll start out by introducing myself. My name is Joanna Marcotte. I'm a Farrier Labs ambassador, and I've been volunteering with the company since about February when I met Jerry and David and started using the curriculum within my classes. So today I am pleased to introduce one of the seniors at my school, Leah Marvel, who is a multiple-time state-level NCUA award winner. She has also received the Aspire IT grant and has run summer programming within Manchester, New Hampshire area. And then she ended up using that summer programming as her senior project. So she's going to talk about her connection to NCWIT and her pathway through high school with computer science and how that's informed some of her decisions for her future. So Leah, whenever you are ready, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen. So my program that I ran was called App Developer. You can see the logo up at the top there was designed by my co-leader, Sarah. And in this presentation, I'm going to be telling you how to apply for an NCWIT Aspire IT grant. So the first thing that you have to do in order to be eligible for an Aspire IT grant is you need to apply for the NCWIT award. So that's the National Center for Women in Information Technology. You can go to their website, which is aspirations.org. The deadline for applying for an award is usually sometime in the fall. As a student, you need an educator endorsement. So that's kind of like a teacher recommendation. Your computer science teacher would be a really good person to use for this. There are several different award levels where it goes from rising stars all the way up to national level award winners. So it's very beginner friendly. People at all levels of experience might get a chance to win an award and attend the award ceremony, and it's really fun. And there are so many opportunities you can get from receiving this kind of award. For example, at the college level, you might be eligible for a scholarship to attend the Grace Hopper Conference, which is a big thing that happens every year where women involved in computer science all get together. There's all sorts of networking opportunities. There's a newsletter that goes out. There's a Facebook group that people use to keep in touch. There's lots of good stuff that you get from an Aspirations award. So that's the most important step, and that's the first step towards getting this grant. So after you apply for an Aspirations in Computing award, if you win, then you're officially a part of the Aspirations in Computing community, which means you are eligible for an Aspire IT grant. So the most important thing to remember here is that there are multiple rounds per year. So that means, I'm not sure of the exact number, but it's 2 or 3 times a year. There's a deadline that you have to meet. Following that is the time in which you can actually run your program. So if you want to run one over the summer, the deadline might be somewhere a little bit earlier in the year. If you want to run one over winter vacation, the deadline for that would be a little bit later. So you do have to kind of plan ahead on when you want to hold your program. So to reach the grant application, you sign in with your NCWIT account that you made when you first applied for the Aspirations in Computing Award. Then you need to find a partner organization and a team. So there are organizations that have already signed up to work with NCWIT. Personally, I worked with University of New Hampshire, Manchester, and they had already run some programs with NCWIT before, so they were already all signed up. But I know at my school, Ms. Marcotte helped file the paperwork to get my school to be an official program partner for NCWIT so that programs could be run there. So they can connect you with a partner organization, or you could propose to your school that they become a partner organization, and then somebody in administration would need to file that paperwork. But also really important is team members. So I really recommend having a co-leader. It's really great to have somebody to kind of share the work with, who's there to support you, who can help you teaching, and who's always there. You could also have volunteers, so other students, your computer science teacher. Your team is probably the most important thing for your success here. So what is on the actual application itself is you have to write a proposal, and you need to also write a budget. So the proposal has questions such as, what do you expect to learn from this? What are your learning goals for your students? And they ask you some things about, who do you think your students will be? What communities will you be serving? So it's all stuff that you should think about before you submit your application. It doesn't get too in depth. It's about like a short paragraph per response. So it's really doable. You also need to fill out a budget, and I have an example of that on the next page. That's also a really important part. Then, after you submit it, you will hear back if your proposal was approved, and then you're able to run your program. Then after your program is run, you need to submit a final report. But once you're at that point, you've done all the hard stuff. So that's just the last thing that you do. And then if you like it, you might start all over again and run a program again. So budgeting, this is a really big thing. The first thing you need to do is determine the number of participants that you expect to have. It doesn't have to be exact, but it's important to do because it determines the amount of funding that you can get. You determine the size of the grant by multiplying the number of participants by the number of program hours. And you use that to figure out the size of the grant that you can request. Then once you know the size of the grant you can request, which again, the number of participants is an estimate, but you should try to be as accurate as possible. Then you decide, do you want to charge a program fee? For app developer, we did not charge a program fee because we were working with Girls Inc. and we were showing up to their summer camp program twice a week. So it didn't make sense to charge participants. But if you do need extra funding for your program, then you could totally consider charging a program fee. There's also a space for in-kind donations, which, like, if your school is letting you use your computer lab or classrooms, that's an in-kind donation. Technology is definitely the most expensive thing, at least in our budget, which we budgeted for tablets. And so that's something where if you can find a working computer lab or your school has tablets that you can use, that will save you lots and lots of money that you can use for other things. If you don't have to pay for that out of pocket or out of the grant. So then team member compensation would be the next section. For us, my co-leader and I decided not to ask for compensation. But if you would like to, you can request compensation. If, for example, like a supervisor or somebody on your team member needs to pay for like childcare or something like that while they're there, that would make sense. So that's something else that you have to consider. Field trips, we went on a field trip. Girls Inc. did pay for the busing, and it was a field trip to UNH Manchester, which was free. So that was free for us, but for your own program, you might have to budget that in. Indirect expenses to the program partner are also an important thing to consider. I think they can apply for up to 10% of the total grant amount to go to the indirect expenses that your program partner is incurring. You also want to budget for snacks and swag. I know that the students really enjoyed getting snacks at the end of each program, and it was fun to have the t-shirts and that kind of stuff at the end of the program. So here's a sample budget. If we look at it really quickly, you can see the base funding requested was $2,000, and then we subtracted out everything from that. But they give you a template as you're filling out everything on the NCWIT website, so they do try to make it easy for you. So some setbacks in our own program were we did have to change location. So we were planning to do it somewhere else, but that location fell through. So we had to switch to Girls Inc. But it was great. The program ran wonderfully, and we sorted that all out a couple weeks before the program actually started. This is something that I'm guessing everybody who's run a program like this has run into at one time or another, which is tech issues. And boy, did we have tech issues on the first day. We weren't able to actually get on the internet with the computers, or with the tablets that we were trying to test the apps on. So instead, we did some alternate activities with the computers, but we weren't able to do our first lesson. Also, on your first day of the program, you need to have your students fill out surveys, which is this really long URL, and we were having trouble typing it in for each individual student. So then we said, why don't we just make a website in Google Sites really quickly and throw the link up on there, and they can click from there. And that worked really well, and that actually ended up being one of the best things in our program, was having that website that students could always refer to, and they could just easily click the links for everything. We also did kind of overschedule the lessons, although I think it's better to have more and not be able to get to everything than to reach the end of your scheduled lesson and still have time left over. But just know that you probably won't get to everything that you scheduled in. And all in all, we learned that flexibility really is key here. Things are going to happen. You're going to have tech issues, the class might show up late. There's all kinds of stuff that could go wrong, but as long as you have an open mind, you're willing to work with it, it'll be fun to run the program. So successes, like I said, the program website actually did work really well, because we had the links to the lessons all up there. We had links to Pixabay, places where you could get free sound clips that they could use in their apps. The field trip to UNH Manchester was really fun. If you can pay for it in your budget and you can arrange it, I'd really recommend having a field trip. And it also supports one of the things that they ask for in the grant application, which is how are you encouraging students and connecting them to future college and career opportunities. So that's something you also have to think about. We actually got a senator to visit. Senator Hassan from our state of New Hampshire came. She sat in on a lesson. We taught her how to make an app along with the students, and that was really fun. The lesson plans overall worked out really well for us, just to have a small outline of what we were going to accomplish every day. Then you would update the program website with that day's lesson plans. Also, it was really nice to figure out that we inspired future NCUA applicants. At least one participant in the program did apply this year for an Aspirations in Computing Award. So that was really exciting. And it's definitely one of the aims of this program is to get more people in the NCWIT community, and just the STEM and CS community at large. So this is a screenshot from our website. You can see it's from the last day, where the last day of the program we did create your own app with the things that we've learned throughout the whole program. Over there on the left, on the navigation bar, you can see all the different lessons we did, and then some links to some other stuff. So I would really recommend having a program website. It really helps. So personally, running a program it really built my confidence. It helped my communication skills immensely, because I was talking with students, I was talking with the UNH Manchester, with Girls Inc., and communication between me and my co-leader. It was all really important. Um, and it really just makes me feel better about, going into college, going out into the workplace in the future. Um, that it's so important to like communicate with your team. Teaching experience I thought was really interesting. I gotta say, after this, I don't want to be a teacher, at least like a full-time career, but I did enjoy putting together lesson plans. And I think explaining things in a way that people who are new to a subject can understand really is like an invaluable skill that you'll use in whatever you go into. Meeting Senator Hassan was really exciting. And also from a local news outlet, Manchester Inkling came. Um, and I thought that was really good that they were reporting on this and getting the word out there a bit more about NCWIT. So that was really fun. That was towards the end of the program. Also, suggestions if you run your own program. The number one suggestion I have is find a co-leader. It is really, really good to work with somebody else who you can help each other through everything. It's just good to get different ideas in there. And for us, it was like one person would work the projector, well, one person would be talking to the students. You need a team. Your team members are going to be what helps you through this. Read a lesson plan and a program website, especially once you encounter the intro survey. There's also an exit survey at the end of the program. You really want students to be able to access those easily. It's a link with a really long URL. And it's also nice to have something that students can refer to after the program's over. So a program website is pretty much a must-have. Also, unplugged activities, because everybody knows that tech stuff can and will fail at times. The internet might go out, just a single website might be down that you were planning on using. So always have backup unplugged activities. That's super important. Communication with your team, with the students. We had to keep in communication with Aspire IT when we changed around the program location when that didn't work out. But Aspire IT is also really good at keeping in communication with you. When you email them, they will answer back very quickly. So keep in communication with all members of your team and be prepared to change plans on the fly. It's not going to be exactly what you planned at the beginning, but whatever it is, it's going to be good. And then finally, NCUA is sponsoring, or they're hosting an online workshop for school counselors, where they're going to have stuff about like career prospects in CS. You're going to get to learn some about tech professionals and their jobs. It looks like it's going to be really interesting. So that's June 22nd to 23rd. It's free. Sign up if that sounds like something you're interested in. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Leah, we have a couple of questions in the chat
Okay, I'll open that up.
related to your project. So how did and participating in NCWIT and within these programs help to identify or change what you thought your career goals and your pathway was going to be?
So at the beginning of high school, I really had no idea what my career goals would be. It has really helped me figure out that whatever I'm gonna do, I can take more of a leadership role in that. Like I said, with the learning about teaching, I know in lots and lots of industries, you can run workshops, you can do presentations at conferences. Personally, and this has been a lot through stuff that NCWIT and actually my computer science teacher has brought towards me. I'm really interested in data science, although that's been not directly from participating in this program that I've gotten an interest in it. But it's a sort of like a secondary thing, as if you do enough stuff related to tech, I think most people would find something that's fun, that you're interested in, that you want to learn more about.
Are there any other questions for Leah in her presentation and what she learned about launching an NCUA Aspire IT project or being a part of the student population that's been recognized by NCUA? Oh, someone would like you to share some of the other things that you've done since your project, and that would be Emily Kerr from UNH. She wants you to talk about some of those other projects that you were engaged in as a result of your exposure and the connections from NCWIT within the state of New Hampshire.
Okay. Well, after I first won an Aspirations Institute award when I was a sophomore. So I'm a senior now. But actually last school year, I won the Congressional App Challenge in our congressional district. That was really exciting. I made an Android app of the Electoral College. So that's something I did back in 2018. More recently, I was named the New Hampshire Tech Alliance Tech Student of the Year. That was also really exciting. And beyond that, I have helped out with some like professional development tech support things at my school. I've joined I've joined Computer Science Honor Society at my school, which recently formed. That's fun. And I'm planning on engaging more in NCWIT in college as more collegiate opportunities open up, like applying for the Grace Hopper Conference scholarship.
Leah, can you also talk about your work with the Center for New Americans?
Oh yeah, so last summer, I was working at the Center for New Americans in Manchester, New Hampshire. I've been doing that up until actually schools closed a little bit earlier this year. So with that, I was working with this program called Choosito, and that's an AI-driven search engine that aims to find resources for students to read who are learning English as another language. So I helped kids use that. I helped them make some projects where they did research on the computer. Then they found websites and cited their sources and made posters. That was a really fun
thing. Leah, I think you already talked about this a little bit, but if you could just revisit it because there's a question about it. How far in advance did you apply for the grant before actually running your summer program with Girls Inc. in UNH Manchester?
Okay, so I believe that last year when I was applying for app developer, the deadline was sometime in March. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was March or April. I think it was March. And then we heard back about that in about a month. And then the program itself ran from like end of June, beginning of July to August. So let's see, that's like April, May, June. It was about 2 or 3 months in
advance. And then Dean Mooney, who happens to be your principal, would like to know what the biggest challenge you had to overcome while you were doing this project in going through this whole journey with Aspire IT and the grant writing process and running camp. What was the biggest obstacle you overcame?
I think the biggest obstacle came after we had submitted the application, but before the program was actually running, when we found out that our original organization that we planned to hold it with, that wasn't going to be able to happen. They weren't holding a summer program that year after all. That was kind of scary, that we'd already submitted the application, everything seemed like it was going great, and then that all just went away. But working with Emily Kerr from UNH Manchester, we were able to find Girls Inc. We had a list of like Girl Scouts, YMCA, we were coming up with other organizations that we might be able to work with. But that was definitely the most challenging part, because there was a time there when it seemed like it really might not work out. But in the end, it did.
Excellent. And Leah, one of the things you may not realize, because you might not be looking at the participant list, but we actually have Eva Bradshaw in the meeting from NCWIT, hearing you talk about your project, which is pretty awesome today.
Wow. Hi.
Sorry I got here late, but yes, I am here, and I'm excited to hear more about what you've been doing and to help others who are interested in Aspire IT learning more.
So I can also share that Zoom link with you after it's published too, Eva, so that you have it, and you can push that out on NCWIT if you want.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then Ms. Henry had a question, but I believe Ms. Bradshaw answered that. So are there any other questions today for Leah? Oh, Leah, can you talk more about what you learned when you had to switch organizations in that process? Because there was a lot of learning occurring there, and Ms. Kerr would like you to speak to that.
Okay, well, I think the big lesson there was something that I'm figuring out now, with like the current situation with school getting canceled too, is that really you can't depend on anything to be 100% for certain. There's just, things can be going totally normally, and then you never see it coming, and it can completely change. It can be disappointing. We'd actually been working with that organization and volunteering there in the spring, and we really enjoyed that, and that's why we wanted to hold the program there. So it was unfortunate that we weren't able to, but being able to sit there in a meeting with Sarah and Ms. Kerr, and come up with that list of organizations, and we were emailing them right there, and then coming up with a backup plan that ended up working so much better than I ever could have expected. A big lesson there was that things probably aren't going to go exactly to plan. Sometimes they'll go way, way off from what you expected. But just because it's not exactly what you've mapped out in the beginning, doesn't mean that it won't be really great. And also just that my team was able to work together, and it was tough to hear, the place that we planned on holding it, we can't do that. But to keep working and, figure out an alternative it also made me feel really good to be a part of that.
Yeah, can you also speak, like you talked about applying for the aspirations and computing piece, but can you speak to how all of this process and everything you've been involved in, how that's helped you out with the college application process? Because I think that's something you didn't talk about, but a lot of this has kind of helped you out along the way with that as well.
Oh yeah, that's good. So this has really helped me with college applications, in that I have a really great thing that, when I was in an interview for college, or scholarship applications that ask me about leadership things that I've done, or, college essays that ask you, like, what's a big challenge that you faced and gotten over. There's just so much that I've experienced from running this program, that it's like stuff that I can talk about, like leadership experiences, teaching experiences, experiences with computer science, which I applied to several colleges as a possible computer science major. It's really, really great for that. And also, like I said, with the communication aspect, I think it also made me more confident in going through the application process, in just having those interviews and talking with the interviewer, and emailing colleges when I had questions, and having the confidence to speak up when I didn't know exactly what was happening or I had a question, because there's also a lot of curveballs in the college admissions process itself. just like there was in the grant application process. So it did really help me when I was applying for college.
Excellent. Are there any additional questions for Leah today? Well, thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to guess by the no other things appearing in the chat that we are good for today. Leah, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your story. You're getting a ton of, I'm so proud of you, great job, amazing job. So if you're not checking out that chat, take a look. Miss Care is waving to you. It's been a while since you've seen her. There's some other people in here that you might recognize. So thank you for sharing that journey, because I think it's important for people who have not been involved with NCUIT to hear that from start to finish, and how you have been able to change as a leader over time as a result of the Aspirations in Computing Award, and then that opening up the doorway to the Aspire IT grant, and you choosing to work on something related to a class that you were learning at Founders, and then kind of branching out and choosing to run a whole summer camp related to that. So that is so helpful for our participants in here, some of which who might be learning about Furia Labs through our workshops and trying to explore those. Certainly their students, after they go through learning Python, could be offering similar programming camps related to Python programming and microbits, kind of like you have done with the App Inventor stuff. So thank you so much for sharing your journey today.
Hey, can I ask Leah a question?
Of course you can.
Okay, first of all, I wasn't ready for Zoom today, so this is my not ready for Zoom face. I have a student who won state this year. She's a senior, and she'll probably apply for the next round of funding. Would you be interested in like being a resource for her to reach out to?
Yeah,
okay.
Certainly.
Okay, great. I can get your get a contact info for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, cool. You did a great job. Very, very good.
Thanks.
So anyone who wants to rewatch the webinar, it will be posted on Furia Labs YouTube channel a day or two after this recording. And thank you so much for coming. Have an awesome day in the rest of your Zoom meetings. If people have additional questions, feel free to stick around, and Jerry and I will stick around to answer any additional questions about Furia Labs.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
everybody.
Thank you for
Leah.
coming.
You're awesome.
Nice job, Leah.
Thanks.
Yeah. See you.